Hey guys, Greg and Ryan here. We are back and we're looking ahead at American Horror Story. Of course, we're getting season 10 at some point this year, fingers crossed. But we're also getting a new spin-off series, American Horror Stories. According to Ryan Murphy, there will be 16 one-hour standalone episodes delving into horror myths, legends, and lore, adding that many of the episodes will feature AHS stars that we know and love.
If you look in the face of evil, evil's gonna look right back at you.
Well, we're pretty damn excited about this, and it got us thinking, what do we absolutely need to see in this new spin-off show? Now, we're going to share half of those theories with you right now, and the rest of them next week, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Now, Ryan, let's jump into it.
Let's do it. No surprise here, guys. Have we told you we want aliens? Now, if you've watched us before, you know that we need some answers when it comes to those mysterious extraterrestrials that we met back in Asylum. We even made a recent video about all of this. Now, Greg, you and I know that Ryan Murphy is not the biggest fan of the alien storyline and that he wants everything to kind of stay on American soil for American Horror Story. But what do you think about maybe an Area 51 storyline here? That might work.
It's only, again, these are hour long, so maybe he's like, okay, I'll give you 1 hour to do this alien thing, and you can even wrap it all up when connected to Asylum, and then we're done with it. I could definitely see that happening, so I'm glad we started this off with aliens, because maybe that's what they do. He's like, here's your treat, there you go, and then they call it a day, and that's the end of the alien storyline. At the end, it'll just be like Poochie the dog, and they'll say the aliens left the planet, and they died on their way back to their home world.
My planet needs me.
Wow, Poochie came from another planet?
I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? Because especially if we don't see the aliens in season 10, it's like at least give us a taste in one of these standalone episodes in order to kind of tie up the loose ends of what we saw in Asylum. I mean, for sure, if the aliens were introduced in Asylum in the, the northeast region, Massachusetts area that they were in, surely over the subsequent years of the show in the universe, you would think that aliens would come back at some point and be relevant in some storyline.
Mm-hmm. I see it. I'm just being so cynical on this because the Ryan Murphy's face when we bring up aliens to him.
I think alien stuff is like you either love it or you don't, you know?
Yeah.
It's not my jam ever, because then it would be called, American sci-fi story, which I guess we could spin off as well.
It doesn't just look like we're going to get like a big story that delves into the alien storyline. There, any kind of prequel to Asylum, nothing like that's happening, I don't think. So maybe just if someone convinced him, 1 hour, 60 minutes just to tie up this alien storyline for fans, sure, let's do it. I hope there's more, but we'll see.
Yeah, and please maybe even drop in a little Kit Walker hint, Easter egg there, or something on the kids. We don't know what happened to his kids, but what we want to know what made Kit Walker so unique and so special that the aliens had to visit multiple times and check in on him.
Next up, what about Liz Taylor? We need Dennis O'Hare to return to the show once and for all, and if he does, it should be his greatest performance on the series, Liz Taylor. I love this idea. I hope it happens because Liz is such an integral part to the Hotel Cortez, and we know that if they're going to try to connect every single season, we're going to go back to the hotel. And who should be there? Well, there are two. There's another one that I want to bring up later on that might come back, but I'm certain that Liz has to make an appearance if they bring back Dennis O'Hare. I hope they do. Liz is the heart of that hotel. So, and again, she's got all the secrets there. She knows everything. So I can see this happening.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea too, Greg, because the ending of Hotel obviously opens up a different phase of Liz's life, right? Obviously, Liz transitions over to the afterlife. The Countess takes her life, and now Liz is in this position where it can go so many different ways, right? Now she's reunited with Tristan, obviously, so that all love story comes to an end. But who knows what's happened in the interim? What's happened since then? Or you could tell a story of something that we didn't see yet when Liz, some of the backstory on Liz getting acclimated to the hotel. I'm sure you can use a bunch of kind of like present day and some flashback in an episode of this. But there's just so much to work with here.
There is, and the easiest way they could do this, and I feel like maybe they should take it another level. I hope it's not just Liz is at the bar, someone comes over, and Liz tells them a story. another. So Liz is telling that American Horror Story here, and it's something entirely different, and they box it that way. That's easy. That's almost way too easy. I hope they don't do that, because I can see them doing that for the entire series, where it's just boxed.
Yeah.
I really hope they don't. Please do not box these stories where it's you get your your main character from the series prior has come in just to shoot like the intro and outro. I hope that's not what they do.
No, we don't want that. If she's feeding cat food to some guests, we'll be watching.
Oh yes.
Bitches want pate? Pate they shall have.
How about Scream Queens? Yes, the Ryan Murphy crossover event that we've been waiting for. AHS meets Scream Queens. Let's finally get some confirmation that both of these shows take place in the same universe.
Honestly, I would love to see Zayday return for this scenario. If they do decide to finally do a crossover, bring back Keke Palmer into the franchise. And this would be a perfect opportunity to do that with a spinoff starting there. And you don't need, I just don't see Billy Lord or Emma Roberts in it. I don't know why. I just feel like if they do it, I would prefer if they started it off with Keke and then going from there to leave you off on some new idea that they're going to take it with. Also, because the thing is, everyone anticipates at some point they may reboot Scream Queens. So if that's still the game plan, it's a long shot, but could be a great way for them to gauge the audience before greenlighting anything.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe Emma and Billy aren't like major players in this crossover, but maybe like a little cameo, just a little wink at the audience that this universe is kind of, they're together. They're in the same universe.
It could be confusing. That's why I think not bringing those two back, as because they're huge staples. They're huge staples on American Horror Story. So it could be a little confusing to audiences here. So if you bring in Keke Palmer instead, who's definitely a mainstay on Scream Queens, how about they bring her in and have that be the bridge here? And then of course you have there are tiny clues out there that they could be connected, even though I think this just could be a coincidence in the teleplay, where you have the Coco's character from Apocalypse, played by Leslie Grossman. She's she's a Saint Pierre, which of course that Saint Pierre family line was also involved in a short sequence in Scream Queens. So people think there's a connection between them and also Coco Saint Pierre Vanderbilt, and they just think that maybe that's the connection, that's the way in between the two families, and they can bridge it in this spinoff. Maybe we'll see. I would love for them to do it. I think they can. It shouldn't be too difficult because they've already tried to bridge, I think, Glee into Scream Queens. So here is another way for Ryan Murphy to bring it all together, synergy. And I think Scream Queens would be the perfect scenario here. This is a good case study, I think, for them if they want to really, spin it off.
How about a good cannibal story, Greg? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hills Have Eyes, the Polk family we've seen on AHS. But we need a good standalone episode. Maybe it's the Polk family, a continued thing about them, how they started this truce with the Lost Colony, what happened on that land. There's so many great horror elements that you can play with here with a family as twisted, the incestual family of cannibals that are just living in the forest on their own, detached from any part of society that we know. I think it's a no-brainer to bring a cannibal story into a standalone episode of AHS.
Absolutely. Maybe it can be a little bit like Jeepers Creepers. But with that said, I know a lot of people weren't thrilled with Roanoke, so I'm wondering how they're going to tie that in. They will, because there's so many episodes or stories. There's going to be one for each season. There's no way they can't do that. So with that said, if you're thinking off the top of your head, what would they do for Roanoke? Unless they still have the costumes, which they likely do, for if they wanted to go back to the early days of the Roanoke colony, that would be cool. I would prefer that maybe over cannibals, but cannibals just seems like a slam dunk. I can't imagine they wouldn't do something on that land involving how maybe just how the Polks are helping out the Roanoke colony over all these years. So you can find a time period in like the 70s or 60s and go from there.
Yeah, and even if it's not the Polk family, I think the idea of a cannibal story, removing any of the supernatural elements of a season like Roanoke, or the meta elements of the reality show inside of
Yeah.
a show inside of a show. Just having a strong, horrifying, messed up family of cannibals that we are just terrified by. I think we've seen it in countless movies and TV shows. I think, like I said, it's a no-brainer. One of our favorite shows in the past, The X-Files, they did a great episode of television called Home that you and I have referenced countless times before, about the incestual family in that one, and then Mulder and Scully have to go there and investigate all these things that go down. I think a really strong episode of TV like that in the AHS universe is something that we should look forward to.
Now, Supernatural did this, so I'm going through Supernatural right now, trying to go through all these seasons. So they did they cribbed Home quite a few times. So now I'm thinking, like, where does American Horror Stories take it? They're gonna do it, but I wonder if they're gonna have a more meta turn on it. I think than we typically know. It could be campy. I have a feeling it could be more of a campy side to this, but we'll see.
And by the way, the X-Files episode I'm referring to, it was co-written by James Wong, who is actually an executive producer on American Horror Stories. So, hey, that's something.
He may say no. Maybe if he's in the room, he'll say no. I'm sick and tired of this. Let's never do it again. But let's see. Now, we already talked about Liz Taylor, but what about Sally McKenna? Another character portrayed by Sarah Paulson, and we know that Sarah Paulson is going to apparently direct an episode for Stories. So what if she's doing double duty, which they like to do a lot on this show, and have her also star in an episode, or they're going to give her an episode maybe that she's very familiar with the theme and the setting. So I'm thinking, again, I don't think it's Roanoke. It could be, I feel like it could be Hotel, or again, back to somewhere in Murder House. But I just don't see a Billie Dean character here. And I don't see Billie Dean showing up at the hotel because, again, she can never go back there. So in canon-wise, the only character that would make sense in this scenario, since she already just directed an episode in Murder House, how about it's something involving Hotel and Sally McKenna? That would be awesome, honestly. They can bring her back easily for this role, and I think it would just be a slam dunk.
Yeah, Sally McKenna was such a fun role for her. I believe Sarah talked about it before, that she had so much fun doing this. So I think it's a no-brainer coming back to what's going on with McKenna in this future of Hotel Cortez, kind of like what we talked about with Liz. I just want to know, Greg, has Sally McKenna started a YouTube channel? What's going on with McKenna? What is she doing?
That's the thing. So TikTok has blown up, so it's gotta be about Sally McKenna on TikTok and social media now. There's no way they don't. That's just, again, they have to do something like that. There's no way they're gonna skip that. If I'm betting on this, even though I would not bet on this, obviously, but if you had to, if you're down bad, I would go with Sally McKenna coming back to AHS Stories.
So she's doing makeup tutorials on TikTok.
Yes. There you go. Thank you.
Everybody's looking at you and makes you smile.
The return of Rubberman. If you're big enough fans of AHS, you know that Ryan Murphy sporadically teases images of future AHS shows on his own Instagram account. So we're not sure if this is actually in season 10. We would be surprised if it was season 10 because we already got that in Apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's a one-off standalone episode involving Rubberman, or the many people that have worn the Rubberman suit, or whatever that entity of Rubberman might move into being after we saw Apocalypse and the way Michael Langdon used Rubberman in order to mess with Mr. Gallant in Apocalypse. I think the main draw here, Greg, is that Rubberman is such an iconic character or image from the first season of Murder House that it has to be involved some way here in the future.
Ryan, I'm gonna be honest with you here. I don't care about the Rubberman character at all. I know it's a big staple for the AHS franchise because that's where it all began, or at least look at all the posters starting off in the season with Murder House and how that character grew.
Yeah.
At the same time, what are you gonna do? An origin story for a character that's kind of like a trickster, low-key trickster here, except it involves murder and rape in every single scenario. So I don't know. I guess somebody else will just put on the suit and then go from there. What are they gonna do? I'm the Joker. I'm the Rubberman. It's gonna be like some kind of origin story there. I watch me say this, and then that turns out to be like an Emmy Award-winning episode. So I'm gonna shut up there because that's what I'm setting this up for. That I'm setting myself up to take a huge L on this one. But I don't care about the Rubberman character at all. I'm sorry.
I'm with you on this in terms of like there's not much weight there to tell a whole thing about the Rubberman, but maybe it's an element of terror used by some entity. If we ever go back to the murder
devil
house, if we go. The devil. Yeah, exactly. And if we see the devil or we see Satan return at some point, this is a tool of horror to be used against people. I mean, the idea of a masked latex rubber, sexual suit used against people for horrible reasons is probably going to pop up again in the show.
Yes.
How about some urban legends? Greg, we've talked about this before. Remember back to 1984, Stacy from the National Choir is talking to Brooke and Donna, and she mentions, some interesting topics.
It's funny because back in the 70s, all anyone cared about was Bigfoot and aliens, the Loch Ness Monster, all that Leonard Nimoy in search of shit.
So why not spend an episode of the Spinoff series on these urban legends, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, all these different cryptids, these creatures that could just be terrifying. Maybe use some found footage elements like we saw in Roanoke and do a really fun episode surrounding one of these mysterious creatures that could just be truly horrifying.
I agree. I wonder if this is more for the main show, though. I feel like this is for the mothership more than a stories episode. But who knows? I mean, there's 16 episodes, so give them one on just, Loch Ness Monster or something like Bigfoot. I think a Bigfoot story in AHS would be awesome, honestly. I would love to see something like that.
George, what is it?
But it's got to be a bear.
Could it be a gorilla?
Yeah, and like I said, you can use some of those Roanoke elements of storytelling in order to show this.
Not
maybe
all of
a
them.
group of people on
not every element from Roanoke.
yeah, but maybe there's a group that are into conspiracy theories and basically getting to the bottom things, and maybe there was a sighting of some type of mysterious creature, and then all chaos breaks out, and it's survival. Everyone's on their own for survival.
Yep.
Just a really good, scary monster episode has to happen.
Please. All right, Ryan, what about copycat killers? Everyone loves a good copycat killer storyline or a true crime story. By the way, True Crimes AHS is on the channel right now. First episode's up right now, so make sure to check that out on Murder House. Now, there's plenty of stuff that the writers can pull from, of course, and they can go any time period with serial killers here. They could even go back to, again, the hotel with H.H. Holmes kind of vibes here, or anything in between. Do they find new serial killers to highlight on this show? Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of how they, highlight their serial killers on most occasions, especially with Richard Ramirez last season. But prior to that, I think they did a pretty good job with it. So I would love to see something like Bloody Face returning, or some kind of copycat, another version of that. Or again, something like Mr. Jingles, something recent. They can do a copycat killer there, even though that feels a lot more like I Know What You Did Last Summer. But still, there's a small window that they can probably, work on this storyline a little bit more with anything that has to involve serial killers.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind for me was, of course, Lee Emerson, played by Ian McShane, one of the best cameos we've gotten on this series. Like a killer Santa Claus. Who doesn't like that? Who doesn't love a horror story centered around the holidays? That's some fun right there. But like you said, copycat killer stories across film and TV have always been great, and to have maybe a present day. A serial killer come back that was inspired by something in the past, inspired by something that we saw in AHS, come back and kind of use some of those elements and kind of the evolution of a killer, seeing all that kind of unfold, and then people trying to stop him, of course. I think that would be a really fun one to see down the road. There's so much to pull from here, from the lore of AHS, just because it's like just filled to the brim with murder, Greg. So there's no shortage here to pull from.
Do you appreciate that right now, do you? Don't you feel wonderful about being with your family, huh? Huh?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Now, this is a bonus It's Behold and Madison in a team up. Now, this is complete fanfic because one, Emma Roberts, congratulations, she just had a child, so I don't know when the shooting schedules are going to look like, and also, you know, Billy Porter, he's a pretty busy man. With that said, please, if they got time, if they can figure this out, I would love to see Behold and Madison together in a team up on just to start here in stories and then go from there. Just like we said for Scream Queens, you can test the waters here if you wanted to do just another spinoff, because this is a great opportunity here where you have two characters who can just give me an hour-long episode where it's like from hell and back, where they're basically Ghostbusters, you know, trying to bring back spirits and demons back to hell. I would love something like that. Please, please, please make this happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Greg, because the chemistry of those two during that episode in Apocalypse Return to Murder House was so awesome to see them on screen together, and just how combative they were, but also how they teamed up together and went to the murder house and kind of just learned about the Antichrist Michael Langdon there. But just seeing them together was like, you knew that this needed to be on camera again, that they needed to kind of do this again and extend it.
It's such a slam dunk. Again, you got your supernatural vibe, but you can make a supernatural, like if you just explain to them, hey, it's supernatural, but with AHS characters, come on, just give us that. I can't imagine they haven't at least thought about this, but at the same time, who knows? And maybe, hey, again, Sarah Paulson, she'll be directing an episode, so maybe this is it. Maybe this would be awesome if they brought them back for something like this. I don't know. This is a pipe dream. I really don't know if this is going to happen anytime soon.
You're really nothing but a softie, aren't you?
Whatever. I just thought I'd help two ghosts get laid. At least someone's going to get a happy ever after.
That's it for part 1 of our AHS spin-off predictions, but part 2 is coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Now, if you like this video, hit that like button. Also, leave us a comment. What did we miss? Any other ideas that you might have on the spin-off series? Hit us up in the comments, let us know, and we will see you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching.